academic integrity and plagiarism. So we understand that plagiarism is one of the key areas in which we will have to be very careful, because this is only becoming stringent. The rules and regulations are becoming stringent by the day. So we have a lot of monitoring that is done, whether it is your paper submission or your synopsis or the thesis that is coming to us. We check for the levels of plagiarism, and there are a lot of queries and doubts, how to log in or how to upload, and then how to get things done. So we have actually planned three experts to come and discuss with you on this particular topic. As you can see from the schedule itself, we have Mr. Prakash Sarda, who is the country head of eGalactic, and then we also have Ms. Priti Rati, manager training eGalactic, and we have Professor G. Kumaresan from CFR, who will talk to you about the rules and regulations from the perspective of the Anna University. So may I now request Mr. Prakash Sarda to turn on the video and start the session. May I please introduce you, sir?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Prakash. It is nice to put a face to your name, because we have had so many telephone conversations about various queries regarding plagiarism. Especially from our own scholars. You have been extremely helpful in processing so many theses, because there are a lot of queries from scholars who have submitted their synopsis or their papers and keep asking us, why is this getting delayed? What happened? Why is my plagiarism level so different from what I generated? And why is plagiarism so important at all? So you are the right person to address our gathering. Thank you for joining on time. You are exactly at 3 o'clock. We are starting your session, sir. So the topic that sir will be focusing on today is academic integrity and plagiarism. Sir, so your session will be for the next 30 minutes. Do you have a presentation to share, sir?
Yes, ma'am. I'll just.
Okay. Can you start your session then?
Sure. Just give me one.
Thank you, sir. Over to you then.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. I hope you're able to see my screen now.
Yes, sir. We can see your slide. Plagiarism eGalactic. Yes, we can see that.
So, thank you, ma'am. Pleasure to attend this session with so many participants and share our thoughts a little bit on plagiarism. And I hope this session will help you get a more perspective on plagiarism and how we are looking at it and why it's very important to be addressed. So basically, before we start with plagiarism, let's just step back and say, what is the purpose of education, or maybe a research, right? Or the entire process of learning, right? So education is not just about learning tools or concepts or theories, but it's also about formation of character, building a strength of mind is increased, the intellect is expanded, and one is able to stand on his own feet. And this is a quote from Swami Vivekananda. Now, just when we put research, it is a lot more than this, right? Research is when we have got expertise on a particular subject, we are able to think about it, and we are able to do what we intend to do in that particular subject. And when we look at PhD, basically the expectation is that one is a subject matter expert on that particular topic, right? So it's not just about learning, but it's also about character formation and ability to make decisions. And for that, having a complete holistic understanding is very important. If you look at the entire higher education system globally, not just in India, but the entire earth, so India is contributing to roughly around 200 million students, which is roughly 20 crores. 400 million students. So, and the entire population of higher education students is basically only 20 million. So we are going to contribute roughly around 40% of the entire higher education. We are the third largest economy. We have been providing leadership to top companies. We have multiple languages, diversity, different socio-economic backgrounds, different capabilities, different aspirations. And we have the largest higher education system in terms of the number of students. So it's very important that our education system is able to groom leaders and of futures or individuals for futures who can cater to the requirement of future. If we look at economically how we are doing, then we have just got started, right? We are now almost $3.5 trillion economy, and we are just getting started. If you look at per capita, there's a lot of room where we can grow. So we have a huge strength of population, and education is something that can bring a fundamental change in what we as a country and each of us as an individual can achieve. Some more food for thoughts. A lot of you must have probably heard about Sundar Pichai. Obviously, everyone would have. And incidentally, I think yesterday he was in India only. And some of you must have read about something which is called non-sleep deep rest to overcome stress. Anyone, any clue what it is? Anyone just wants to put something on the chat box? What exactly that is? So basically it is nothing but it's Yog Nindra. Right, I think someone responded rightly, right? What is Yog Nindra? Now, what is needed today to do a research on Yog Nindra? This is one of the papers that I referred, which was published in the year 2018. And in order to be able to understand the impact of Yog Nindra, the researcher basically measured patterns in brainwave activity, respiratory and heart rate variability using EEG, wireless devices, breath monitors, bodyguard HRV monitor, and all of these. Now, I have personally been doing Yoga Nidra for 30 years. I was taught by an instructor who learned it when he was doing yoga from a yoga college in Munger, which means that he actually knew about it in 1930s. So just imagine what has been achieved. Like this is what we had achieved only without these sophisticated technology. Now imagine if we are able to use the inner plus technology together, what difference can be created and what wonders can be done. So there is this beautiful tree, which is a book written by Mr. Dharmpal, which talks about indigenous Indian education in the 18th century. And it's an extensive amount of work and data that is compiled. And for researchers, I would suggest if you can get a hand of this, just go through it to look at how the data was compiled way back in 1800s, when people like were able to do so much of detailed work, capture data to be able to carry out extensive amount of research. Now, if you look at these two golden pieces of work, The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, which was written somewhere in the 17th century, I think fundamentally today also it is one of the best pieces of work. If you look at Charles Darwin's work, The Origin of Species, this was again created in 1800, and it's again a classical piece of work on evolution of species, right? Now, these are like work which have been done by individuals on their own without sophisticated technology, without significant amount of tools to analyze the data, without so much of internet, so much of communication tools, extensive amount of traveling time was required. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that this is all work of one individual. And right now, like as I heard ma'am said, there are 600 researchers. Just see the collective power if each of us are able to do our research work extensively and with honesty. Now, just some more thoughts. When was it that the last assignment or last piece of work, one page, was written by on your own? How much was it copied? How much was it edited? How much did you actually end up writing? And hence, when you did that particular piece of work, how much did you learn? So imagine if a assignment or a piece of article or a piece of journal, like if you write it on your own versus if you just end up copying and editing and pasting, what is the extent of difference that can happen in your learning process, in the research that you are doing? So as eGalactic, we are kind of proud to be associated with plagiarism detection system for more than 14 plus years, in fact 15 years. We were kind of pioneers when we started introducing the concept of plagiarism in India. Our goal is to assist faculties to improve the quality of education by providing tools. And our products are used by 1500 plus universities and institutes in India and globally. And our goal and vision is to how can we help improve the quality of education in India and neighboring countries. So we provide products in different domains, and we are proud to be associated with Shodhi program, under which plagiarism detection system original has been, which was earlier Orcon, has been rolled out to all the universities, and Anna University has been using it for a very long time. I think we were back from 2015. Been a long association with them, and we look forward to working more together. As original, we are present in more than 500 plus, 80 plus countries with 500 plus customers, and it can be integrated with different learning management systems. So coming to the topic today, the main topic is plagiarism. But I just want to step and pause and say that before plagiarism also there is academic integrity that we need to look at. And plagiarism is a subset of academic integrity. And basically, it's important for us to ensure that we follow the principles of academic integrity so that we have adequate learning from the assignment, from the research that we are doing, and we are able to add value and make contribution to the research topic that we are doing. The plagiarism will address text part, but academic integrity is also about image. Image in the sense not our individual image, but when we copy images in our research work, and this is more relevant for people who are from biochemistry or chemistry or medical background. It's about data fabrication and falsification, so ensuring that we follow the practices which are required for data collection, data analysis, data presentation, right, and not just end up using data or making up data. And it's also about whether we do not like just because we want original work, we don't outsource it to someone else, right? So we may end up not copying, but we may end up actually outsourcing it to someone else. So all of these things basically is not what is intended or what is required to achieve the learning, the education, the purpose of research, right? So it's important that we follow the principles of academic integrity in whatever work that we are doing. Now, what is plagiarism? Standard definition is basically when you take someone else's work or idea. Now, most of you must have probably heard this or come across this, that if you come across a thought or an idea and you want to patent it, and the moment you go ahead and try searching the patent database, 99% of the time you will find that that idea has already come to someone else, right? Someone has already patented that idea, or it's not a very unique idea. So hence, if for ideas you cannot come up with a unique idea every time, the same thing applies for thoughts or for writing anything, right? You may not have a unique thing every time to write or something. But it becomes plagiarism when you take someone else's work or idea with or without their consent and you say it is your own. You don't give the acknowledgement to the person who, from where you have taken the idea or from whom you have taken the idea. So that's when it becomes plagiarism, right? So taking idea is fine, but when you're taking an idea, you need to give due acknowledgement to the person. If you're copying, you need to ensure that it has the right references, rightly quoted, right? So you have to ensure that all of that needs to happen, right? It's important that when you are writing a text, thesis, or a research paper, you ensure that you adequately quote it and refer it, and do not take up anyone's ideas and express it as your own, as of your own. Now, why is addressing plagiarism very critical? It's very important because today we are looking at research, which is essentially a theory, an experiment, or a study, or a research or an analysis that we are doing today, right? Now, once we have completed that particular activity or we are in the progress of that activity, it leads to publication, which is writing up our work done. And the application of knowledge, which we'll be able to do with all of that, what we have learned, will help us to create something unique, something which is required for your area of research or activity, right? So addressing plagiarism is very important because if we do that, we are able to create original research, we are able to create original publications, which will help us ensure our application of those thoughts and ideas or knowledge to create intellectual property or patents. Now, there are different types of plagiarism, which we need to understand a bit. An understanding of this more or less helps us to ensure that we do not end up doing it by mistake. Second, it also helps us if we understand what is the type of plagiarism that has happened. Then the person who has submitted the work, we are more able to guide him. We are also able to understand his intent, why he ended up doing that kind of a plagiarism. So copy and paste is the most simple kind of plagiarism, where you take copy from your source and just paste it here, which is Control C, Control P. Then you have translations, where you take from one language and paste is another language. Then you have disguised plagiarism, where basically you take up a piece of work and you quote a part of it, you don't quote a part of it, and you try to hide plagiarism in between. Then there are shake and paste collections, where basically you take content from different sources, try to bring it together, and take small pieces of work from different pieces and make it one collection, and then you may reorient certain parts of it. Then there are clause quills, where you kind of put in between certain pieces of things that you have plagiarized between unplagiarized work. Then there's a structural plagiarism, where you copy the original structure. Then there is a pawn sacrifice, where essentially what you do is when you copy a large pieces of work, a very small piece of work is something that you will quote, but a larger piece of work which you have also quoted from the same source, you will not quote that. Then you have cut and slide, and then lastly you have self-plagiarism. Self-plagiarism is basically when you copy from your earlier piece of work. Now these are different types of plagiarism. A little bit more understanding of this essentially helps more to guide or understand what should not be done, and to also probably help others understand what they should not do. It's from a book, False Feather, A Perspective on Academic Plagiarism by Professor Devara Weaver book. It's a quite good and detailed book for people who want to know more about different types of plagiarism. Now, why do we need to prevent plagiarism? Is very simple, right? We are spending, say, between 1 to 4 years in doing our PhD in research. There is a purpose why we have taken up this course, apart from getting the academic credentials, right? 4 years is a long time, roughly around 15% of the entire time that we have spent in education, right? Or maybe some places 20%. At least we should assimilate and have those knowledges and learning, and also have that skills which we intend to have, so that it helps us in later. And it's also important to motivate everyone to develop original thoughts and ideas. Now just imagine if there's just one page work or assignment which you have done by copying and pasting, versus if you had to just do it on your own completely, right? It enhances the learning, and it encourages students to use sources correctly and use references. Now, these three things basically are applicable for every assignment every work that is done, whether it's a small one-pager work or a thesis or master's or a PhD thesis of 200 pages. Now it also become very easy because there was a time when like at least if you are putting it in a hard copy format, you were forced to read. Once you read, there's something that will get into your head, and then you are writing on your own. So at least there was a 3-step process: reading, thinking, writing. Now, because of digital, it becomes very easy. You read 2 lines, and you like the entire thing, and you feel okay. You can just copy it from there. Right? So, the way digital things have made it very easy to copy and paste. However, the same way, the tools and the internet had made it very easy to find if you end up plagiarizing from different sources. Now, this is very important to understand why plagiarism exists, and there may be different reasons for different each of you, or if you end up plagiarizing, or may not be applicable if you don't plagiarize, which is what our intent is. But understanding why plagiarism is existing helps us get to the root cause and address it. And let us not assume that everyone plagiarizes because they want to. So the first thing is that there's an assumption that it is okay to plagiarize. And that assumption needs to be addressed. So we need to ensure that there's enough awareness, like sessions like these, which is being conducted by Anna University, to ensure that everyone understands that what is plagiarism and how it can be avoided. Then there is a lack of subject understanding. So if or a research lack of adequate research done, right? So if the one is not able to understand, he has no other option, but he ends up copying. Or if he has not done his research work, he will end up copying because he has not done his work to come up with something concrete to present it, right? A lot of people plagiarize just to get a better grade or do a better piece of work, right? So, and the reason may be anything. The reason may be they have not worked, the reason may be they have not enough knowledge, or they have not trust in themselves, and they end up trying to copy to get better grades. Then there is a lack of writing skills. So one may know everything, one may understand everything, one may have enough time, but one doesn't know how to write. So there's a writing skills which is not available, because of which one ends up copying and pasting. Then there's a lack of planning. So you have done good amount of work, great research, great analysis. You are in your last leg, you just have 1 month to complete your PhD thesis and submit it. And you don't have enough time. You can't write 200 pages in 30 days. So you need to plan your entire writing, thesis writing better. You could have probably done a better job in breaking down to chapters and writing those chapters. And even you want to, everything is good. You have the intent, yet you don't have time because you have not planned for it. Then there's unwillingness to work or lack of motivation. So one is not enough motivated to do it on their own. And lastly, and most importantly, there's a lack of confidence and belief that one can do it. And it said, all well begun is half done. So once you decide you're not going to plagiarize, I think it's almost done. You will end up doing a work which will be plagiarism free, because then you will take care of all the issues because of which you end up plagiarizing. So this is how you basically avoid plagiarism. You decide that you will not plagiarize. And that's it. It's done actually once you have made up your mind. So you plan your time, you invest in the topic, right? You ensure you have done enough amount of research, enough amount of analysis, gathered enough feedback, shared enough inputs, right? And this also helps when you invest in the topic, with the sense when you start writing well in advance, you keep getting more and more thoughts on the same thing, and it helps you structure your entire research in a better way as well. You decide to quote sources, you don't want to follow unethical practices or non-academic practices. You ensure that you use citations rightly, you add references where it is required. You cite your own material, right? So self-plagiarism is also something that is not allowed. You should also know what not to cite. So when you are working on a particular topic, you're reading on something, you may come across thousands of things, right? But everything may not be relevant. You have taken an inspiration from something, but you have not plagiarized that. So you need to also know what not to cite or what is allowed, right? You should also know how do you paraphrase it. How do you rightly paraphrase it? What part of it can be paraphrased, what cannot be? Where do you need to give due credit to the person from where you got the idea? And then you should write the bibliography. So once you do these things, I think it falls in place. You are able to avoid plagiarism. But most important thing is to decide that you want to do it on your own. Now, you may not need multiple submissions basically to check your own work for plagiarism, but a few, like 1 or 2 times should be good enough. Like system is flexible. I think it's completely up to the institute to decide how many times a thesis can be submitted, a chapter or a document needs to be submitted. But one needs to ensure that the focus should be in terms of developing original quality work, because all that plagiarism is going to help us find is what is the percentage of similarity. And we ensure that generally you see that the last period is very productive period when everyone ends up doing a lot of work. Hence, it's very important that we should not give multiple opportunities to students and divert the entire focus just on finding what is the percentage of similarity. Right? If you do a piece of work, you know how much you have copied. You may know I have copied 10% of my work or 30% of my work. You may not exactly know whether you have copied 12.84% of your work. Right? Now, what is the right time to introduce the original education system? And this is one slide I want to share with each of you because some of you are going, after you complete your research work, going to become faculty members. So basically, if you ask us to a question to someone who's in pre-primary or kindergarten school or a primary up to class 1 to 3, he will, if you ask a question, he'll give you an answer. If you ask the same question again, he may give you a similar answer, but rarely he'll give you the same answer. That is because he has not mugged up things and he tries to express everything in his own words. But unfortunately, or like there's an expectation that is created where people start reproducing, or there's an expectation created that for a particular question there should be a particular answer starting from a particular page, particular line to a particular page, particular line. So somewhere in the education system, we create these expectations about reproducing of the text, right? And that is what we need to address. We need to ensure that students are, and then with this new education policy, I think there's a lot of focus around that. And we need to drive that to ensure that people start doing application of knowledge and not focus on reproduction of text or ideas. Now, basically, the earlier we start, the better it is. But as we are focused on higher education, we say that when individuals get into the bachelor's, the first assignment, the first piece of work, the first research work, or a first paper should be run through a plagiarism detection system so that we are able to address plagiarism and root cause. Now, addressing plagiarism is always difficult, right? Because when you end up plagiarizing, it's very easy. You can just do it. It's a relaxed way of doing it. Whereas when you take or decide to do your original work, it's difficult. You have to do work, right? You have to do your extensive research, right? It needs practice. It needs effort. So it's always difficult. And then addressing plagiarism is not just about finding, copying in text, because that's just a detection part of it. But these are the 4 pillars. The first is awareness, which is one of these sessions which Anna University is conducting today, and really great for them to focus on this. So it's about creating awareness everywhere. It's about detection, so which is about finding out how much of it is copied and what part of it is copied. It's about having penalty, and there's a UGC policy which defines the penalty. And I'm not going to cover it today because I think there's a session after a session where these things will be covered. And lastly, and most importantly, creating a policy and culture where people don't end up plagiarizing. Now, the moment we introduce the original as a plagiarism checker, we give a message that everyone needs to write on their own. And the moment you have decided you need to write on your own, essentially you are forced to have your own thoughts, which means that basically either you need to be attentive in class, which means you will do your own research, you will do your own work, you'll read a lot, carry out the activity diligently, or if nothing has happened, you will discuss with a lot of people to get a lot of new thoughts and ideas, but you just can't copy. Then there are regulatory requirements from UGC and AICT, which requires that plagiarism should be addressed. And lastly, and most importantly, these are 3 glasses. This is my last slide. And these are not, I'm not talking about optimism. One place we have 100% full of water, another place 0%. I'm talking about plagiarism. At one place we have 100% plagiarism, other percent we have 0% plagiarism. We are here in between today. Our focus is everywhere. How do we find more and more about plagiarism? Anything that we look at, our concept, thought process, how do I find more? Is if you look at our goal is that how do we get to 0% plagiarism? It's good we have got started. I think we have done tremendous good journey in the last 10, 12 years, especially after the UGC policy which came out in 2015. And we are quite hopeful in the next 1 or 2 years, we'll do a lot of more work there to address plagiarism to ensure that the purpose of education, research, PhD can be achieved. So with that, I would want to end my session. If you have any questions, I think I just have 2 more minutes. I'll be more than happy to take. I think there are a few questions. No, I don't think so. Any questions if you have, I'll be more than happy. Otherwise, we'll start with the next session.
Yes, sir. So I request the participants to add questions in the chat box. If there are any questions, of course, academic integrity is a very sensitive topic because, it has a lot of different layers of meaning, and it is up to you how you decide how much, of a very honest and ethical person you want to be in your research. So let us give, a couple of minutes for the scholars and the participants, sir, so that they can add their questions.
Sure. I think there's one question. I'll just address it till we have more questions. Can I use my own images that I have published in my journals before? So either you're using your own image or your own text, right, from either journals. It is self-plagiarism, right? How do you avoid that? You avoid that by quoting or referring it, right? Obviously, as a part of a PhD thesis, if you're writing a thesis and for that particular research, if you're creating papers, you will always end up copying and pasting from reference sources. You need to ensure that you rightly quote it and refer it, and don't just bring it together as it's an unpublished work. Right?
There is a question here asking us whether the plagiarism check is only for the journal or for the synopsis. We do plagiarism checking for any document that is submitted to the Center for Research, whether it is your paper or your synopsis or your complete thesis. So that is one answer. And there is also a very basic question as in how do we check plagiarism? So I think the following session will also focus on that particular question, because there is a separate way how to check plagiarism through the login ID of your supervisor, and those details will also be shared in the next 2 sessions. So with this, I would like to thank Mr. Prakash Sarda for being here and answering our questions, introducing the idea of academic integrity and plagiarism to our scholars. Of course, it's a very key topic and it cannot be achieved just in a session or, just in the 3 years of your PhD. It's a long journey, and your career and your professional standard is also determined by the kind of academic integrity that you have. So thank you for creating an awareness about this topic among our scholars, sir. We would like to host you again, and we would definitely, expect different topics that would be useful for our scholars in the coming years also. So thank you, Mr. Prakash.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity to share our thoughts and ideas on this. Thank you.
Sure. So on behalf of the Center for Research and the University Library, we thank you wholeheartedly for taking your time out and addressing our scholars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.